Welcome to the Conscious Eating Summit. I'm your host, Dr. Nancy Kroll. Today I have with me my friend Jo Sawalha. Coach Jo is an executive coach to high performers, and she focuses on entrepreneurial companies, career building, and transitions. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Can you share with our viewers a little bit just about the work that you do?
Sure. So I've been coaching for 28 years. Back when I started in New York City, we were a little gang and coaching didn't quite exist. So we kind of made it up. And now it's like,
Now you can go to school for it, right?
I know. Yeah. So, but it's been a wild, crazy journey. And I've coached, across the board, all professions. But I find my sweet spot are people who are just already gung-ho, like they have a drive, they want something, and then I can just run with that. Just kind of like a sports coach. You take talent and then you develop it.
Awesome. So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit outside of what you probably normally work with your clients with, but it's all connected and we're going to connect it all.
Yeah.
And that's how you lost 25 pounds, or you did lose 25 pounds.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about, maybe just take it a step back, and before you had lost the weight, where did you feel like you were in your life?
Yeah.
Because I think that's important.
Yeah, it is. And, I find that, so where I started, like where I was before I lost the weight, first of all, I had gained a lot, right? Gone through my teens, a little, not fat, but just a little bit extra. And then I just kind of gained. And life kind of became about that. And I've heard a lot of, especially other women say that when they feel not attractive, even to themselves, never mind to others, it's all they can think about. And I remember back then, it was almost like you pray to God, and if all I get is to be skinny, that's all I want, which is such a sick way to be in life, right? Like that's sick. Like, aren't there more things to life? But when you are in that nasty loop, it's very hard to get out of it. So that was my thinking. And then you also get this kind of like free for all in your head, which I did too. It's like, well, I'm already unhealthy. So what does it matter? It doesn't matter if I drink another drink. It doesn't matter if I eat whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And then you try to recover, and then it feels so difficult. So that's where I was, in a pretty dark headspace.
Yeah. And you had mentioned to me that you used conscious eating, and it's pretty broad, a broad definition but can you tell us what that meant for you? Or what does conscious eating mean for you?
Sure. So that ties into when I kind of got on the journey to lose the weight and get healthy. It really comes along with self-knowledge, right? The ability to manage your mind and manage yourself, which is, by the way, something with my coaching clients, that is what I've coached on, and that often comes into diet, because it really is, knowledge about nutrition, but the other part is, what is your mind doing for a living? So the conscious eating part was first experimenting with different ways of eating that I liked. Did I like being vegetarian? Did I like being raw food vegan? Did I I tried various kind of ways to do it until I landed on what worked for me. But it was a lot more about my inner life and my relationship to myself than it was what I was eating.
I think
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, because we like to salami cut our life. Like, this is our body, this is our diet, this is our relationship, this is our career, and they're all separate, right?
Yeah. And
my career is flourishing, but my relationship sucks, and I'm super fit. But in reality, everything, you can't keep everything separate. Like, if one area of your life is in some way not working, it goes into every area of your life, right?
That's right.
So I feel like what you were saying is super powerful, because as soon as you started to kind of take that awareness beyond, just the food, right, to what was going on the inside, it sounds like that's when the true transformation started to begin.
Yeah, and then I'll tell you something, Nancy. I can tell because I could tell in myself. It really felt like I used myself as an experiment in this consciousness journey around eating. Um, I can tell looking at someone's body and my own where I am emotionally and spiritually and mentally, because there's a certain holding on, right?
Mhm.
And there's cortisol, there's stress. You can see that in the body. I can also, 3 to 5 pounds extra than you like might just be you got a little lazy, right? You got a little lazy. 5 to 10, there's some area in your life you're compensating for. And this is part of like the consciousness around weight, eating, and food. Like 5 to 10 pounds, you're unhappy at work or something, or in a relationship. You go home and you eat or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then 10 to 20, the 5 to 10 has stuck around for a while. So 10 to 20 is some trauma you've had. You gave birth, you didn't, take off the weight. That's compounded, unhappy over time or given up over time. You might be happy, like generally happy in your life, but you just never dealt with that part of your life you weren't happy with. That's 10 to 20. And then, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
but this is just experiential. So I've noticed that, 25 to 50 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
you've had serious trauma in your life. And over 50, there's usually some kind of abuse, like some kind of physical or sometimes sexual abuse. And that's, like clockwork. So it's very interesting. I can just look at my body and say, where am I? Like, what's not working? I know that's a long answer to your question, but I find that very interesting that it follows a very, very clear chart of where you are in your life.
Yeah, you know what's interesting when you were saying like what you've seen as a pattern in terms of where someone is in their psycho-emotional state and the amount of weight is I don't remember where I heard it or where I read it, and maybe I learned it in school, I don't remember, but in obesity, right, it's the excess weight is actually a form of protection.
Mm-hmm.
So they're creating like a buffer, like a space between the outside world and the inside world. And I was just thinking about when you were saying that really translates really well for me, because if you have had some form of abuse, it makes complete sense to want to try to create that for yourself, right? To create that protection. Yeah.
And mind you, is sometimes the abuse is self-abuse, right? You can even create like a shell between yourself and yourself. Like you don't want anybody to touch you. You don't like your own body. Like it's also how you've treated yourself in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then another thing I wanted to mention that because sometimes it can feel very esoteric, this stuff, and I'd like to get down and dirty and practical about this. And one very tangible thing I did to turn the trend was to just basically get my chemistry right. So I really started checking my sugar, and I really tried to go alkaline. So I just ate, and I still do, eat tons of raw vegetables. Just have them like snack around, like raw slices of cabbage, like 8 to 10 handfuls every day at least. And it just does something to the body where it gets satiated and you get fiber, and it begins to neutralize that acidity that keeps feeding on itself, the kind that wants more sugar, more, bread, more of that, because it nourishes, it bites its own tail, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very practical thing that I've noticed, that sometimes when in doubt, just load up on the veggies.
I have a question for you. When you started to make that kind of life transition, first of all, I want to note that this was not a diet, it was a lifestyle change, right?
That's right.
Huge.
Yeah.
But did you only do diet, or did you actually start exercising as well?
Well, I've always exercised.
Okay,
It's always been part of my life.
Yeah.
But just like the food, I think it's very important to find, you got to find what you like.
Yeah.
It's very easy to do it in order to go to the gym or move your body in order to get somewhere, to lose weight, to look skinny. But then when you begin to move for the sake of how good it feels in your body, that's a whole different relationship to movement. Then you move because you want to move. You don't move because there's something about yourself you don't like.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, I can attest to have been having stuck in that old pattern of moving because I wanted to look really great in my bathing suit, or
Mm-hmm.
moving because I wanted to look really great for this boyfriend, or
Right.
all of these things that were exterior to my
Right.
own enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to be honest, it's taken me a long time to finally come into my own of actually just appreciating what it feels like to
Mm-hmm.
move my body and enjoy that sensation, right?
Remember when Roseanne came on, when Roseanne first started her show?
Yeah.
I remember like watching her and I was just feeling liberated by her own seeming relationship to her body. Like she kind of sashayed around her husband who seemed to adore her. And I'm like, wow, she's got to be, yeah, she's obese. She's absolutely 45, 50 pounds overweight if we're going to look at a normal scale
Yeah.
or whatever traditional scale. And she was just so in her power, and that made her so attractive and so
Yeah.
adorable. And I was like, oh, I wish. And I remember in that moment, I said to myself, I don't wish so much to have, I wish more to have her attitude than the body, like a super body right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so much about that, like wherever I am. And when there are times when I've gained a bit, lived a little extra, I call it my goddess days. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just a little bit more feminine right now.
Yeah.
So always be okay with, always make right where you are, because especially the female body is very fickle. Like
Yeah.
it's not, like it doesn't follow rules, like it's its
Yeah.
own thing, and you got to just respect it and go with it, because it changes with age, it changes with cycles, it changes with kids, with hormonal changes. There's so many things that can happen that is so unique to especially the female body that
Yeah.
you just can't put a cookie cutter on it.
Yeah, and we don't really have I mean, some people might just stay the same weight, but really what we have is an ideal weight range. Like
Mm-hmm.
with hormones and fluctuations, there's kind of like about a 5-pound variation that happens depending on where you are in your cycle and that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. And the other thing I was thinking about when you were talking about Roseanne was
Yeah.
the book Eat, Pray, Love. Did you read that?
Yes.
When
Uh-huh.
she goes to Italy and
Yeah.
she just lets herself eat,
Uh-huh.
and she buys new pairs of pants, and
Right.
they kind of just surrender to just like letting loose and like knowing that like it was okay, like they
Yeah.
and I think that you know I think it could go the wrong way on some level, but in that moment and in that book I thought it was so healthy, right, for those
Right.
two women to
Yeah.
just do what felt good right
Right.
then,
Right.
and know
Well,
that.
she's also a very deep person, right? Like, is she also someone
Yeah.
who really kind of comes from the heart and comes from her own, you know, kind of spirit state over, it doesn't seem to me like she overly focuses on her body. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe she does, but I don't know
Yeah.
her personally.
So if you had any advice for like a woman watching this interview right now who's not happy with her body or wants to lose some weight, what
Mhm.
kind of advice do you think that you, or like gem of wisdom could you share that she could start implementing right now?
Well, I mean, a few things. At the risk of sounding like self-promoting or just promoting us, I think it's crucial to have an expert in your life, like some kind of guidance, some kind of coach, some kind of mentor that you aspire to be like, or who went there before you, who's done the journey, who can show
Mm-hmm.
you the steps. I think that's crucial because it is a heavy journey emotionally. I mean, never mind the hard work, right?
Yeah.
It's you go through so many stages and layers of shedding that protection you talked about, that to have someone to back you up and say that I got your back, very
Yeah.
important. The other one I think is do a little inventory about what are the things about myself that I don't accept? Like what's not okay with me? And
Yeah.
what would it be like if I was okay with it? What would make it all right to just be this way right now? And that also doesn't mean forever. You can be whatever you want. You can change your body if you want. Of course you can. Absolutely. But before you go on the journey, it has to be okay exactly the way things are now. Sometimes those things are hidden to ourselves, even what we're not okay about, or we got so used to it it just became a pebble in our shoe that we don't even notice anymore. And we only notice it when we take it out. It's like, oh, that feels so good not to have these like rocks in my shoes.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first good step. Like like two good steps. Get a mentor and take inventory of what's not okay with you.
You know, I don't think you noted this, but when you started your journey, you had a coach as well, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I've always had one.
I think I have a coach. I mean, I think unless most coaches have coaches, right? Or
Yeah.
most influencers or whatever,
Yeah.
they're not standing there by themselves. They have somebody that even if it's not a coach, it's somebody
Right.
that they're following in some way, because we need that. We need someone to kind of mirror back to us
That's right.
where we need to grow and where we need to head.
Absolutely.
So what is your free gift that you're offering the viewers?
Well, given that the people who are watching this, they're probably standing before a life change. They wouldn't be here unless they were kind of sniffing around or ready to change their lives. And so I have a little free gift called 5 Steps to Lasting Change. Because
Awesome.
another thing that people suffer from is just they do the change, but it doesn't stick. So how does it stick? That's what I'm giving today.
Great. And I have one more question for you, Coach Joe. If you could give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Oh, like you were perfect. You were perfect just the way you were, and you could do anything you wanted to. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I feel like that's such a message that we all could like listen to even over and over again, right? Because we go back in and out of like knowing it and not knowing it, and then
Yeah.
doing it. So that is a great advice. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story and your expertise with us. It was very nice. And I just want to thank all of our viewers for watching. Make sure that if you want to download her free gift, you go back to the email where you've watched this video and you can click the link, download it, connect with Coach Joe, and then make sure you check your inbox tomorrow for the next interview. Okay?
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.